highlights,
insight,
reports.
updates,
This is the progress.
progress.
The Progress Report. Today on Progress Report, we have Minister of Labour, Honorable Joseph Hamilton, updating us on labour-related issues. In keeping with the government's manifesto promise, what have you accomplished so far regarding workers' welfare?
Thank you very much for having me. And as the nation is aware, the People's Progressive Party Civic committed to the Guyanese people in 2020 that once elected, we will reestablish the Ministry of Labour. And what we have is a reestablished ministry because it didn't exist in 2020. And therefore, we had to build structure and at the same time give service. So when I got here, the staffing strength should have been 137 persons, but I met only 87 persons. So you had that deficit. Recognizing what must be done, we made a representation for the increase of staff beyond the 137. So we have permission from Public Service Ministry to employ a maximum about 200 persons because the idea was to expand the ministry and to establish labor offices in every region in Guyana. And therefore, we have in every department, you have regional offices. So that is the structure being built. We had no administration. So you had to build from scratch administration, whether it be IT department, accounts, registry, personnel department, to manage the ministry, because all you had was 6 technical departments. And so that is being built. People are being employed. New people are coming in. And whilst we do that, we still had to be going out there and giving service. We couldn't say to people, okay, wait until the structure is built, because people have problems daily. I'm sure you would ask me about some issues that are OSH in nature. You would ask me, I suppose, about co-ops and how they function, the training issues with BIT and so. So structure and service, we continue to do that. And I would say that in a year and months, we are at a good place. Many of the plans we have will conclude, I suspect, by the end of this year. So beginning 2022, as regards staffing, we will have our full complement. As regards setting up offices in regions that should be completed. And so we will be at that place where we can give more service to the Guyanese people through the length and breadth of the country.
Could you give us an update on the ministry's crafting of the Occupation Safety and Health Regulation for the petroleum sector?
Okay, a couple of things. One, when I got here, I invited oil companies, and I wanted to have a stakeholder meeting with them. Their preference at the time was for me to have individual conversations with them. I permitted that, and so I've been engaging companies in the oil and gas industry over the period. We are at a place where I believe we have to have a stakeholder conference with all persons, all companies that are involved in oil and gas, and all trade unions that might have an interest to participate in the oil and gas industry. That, I hope we can do it before the end of the year. As I speak to you, I have the Chief Labor Officer seeking to get a defined list of all the companies that are involved in oil and gas in Guyana. And all the contact persons, they will be written to. And hopefully before the end of the year, as I said, we will have this conference so that everyone can be clear about what the government position is on this matter, what the Ministry of Labour position is on this matter. Whilst we discuss that, we are dealing with the issue of skills training, and that is where Board of Industrial Training is. I can say that last year we trained 2,000 persons. This year we'll train nearly 3,000 persons in all different skill sets. We have some complementary things that are being done at the level of the cabinet. We have a subcommittee that is paying attention to this matter, of which I'm a part, led by the Minister of Finance, where we will be engaging several stakeholders as regards different types of training, compartmentalized training, so to speak, training at the higher end and training at the lower end, so to speak, within the oil and gas industry. How do we fit into the whole oil and gas industry, people who might have lost their jobs, who formerly worked at Gaisoko and other places? All of those things are happening at the same time. How do we situate training centers in communities to ensure that people are exposed to training? The issue of the role of women in these technical training, because the society is structured in a way whereby we have determined over decades what type of job women should be doing. In my view, that must change, that has to change. And therefore, at the level of it, we have no program we do that are gender specific. The programs are open to both male and females to participate in whatever type of training program. So several things are happening because for us at the level of the government, the citizens cannot continue to just complain. We have to take some action. So when we are having a conversation with an oil and gas company and they say that you don't have this necessary skill, let us use for want of argument, heavy duty equipment operator. We can take to them, listen, these are 20 persons who were trained, even if they're dealing with it in the regions. Let us say Region 6, where they're going to be doing a shore-based facility there. We can say to them, look, I just trained and graduated 80 persons in Region 6, of which 15 are females. So Region 1, as I speak to you, training programs are happening to facilitate the bauxite company who had to, not the bauxite, the manganese company, who had to depend on staff coming out of Region 10. And then you have the old quarrel. Region 1 people are not participating. But the point is, the issue was, the skill was not in Region 1. So as I speak to you, heavy duty equipment operator training program is happening in Region 1. Welding and fabrication program are happening in Region 1 to allow for persons to participate in the economic life and whatever businesses they're having in that region. And that is what we are doing across the country. Linden, presently we have 35 persons being trained, heavy duty equipment operator training program. Of course, Region 2, Region 6, Region 4, ICT programs. So you have to have the bodies, the technical skill. So you negate the argument coming from the companies here, the oil companies or people involved in oil and gas, that we can't find the skill in Guyana. But I am saying we are now in a place to say to these companies, look, we have this. Some might have to be trained to a higher level, but the point is, at least they have the base of the training. Let us say a weld and fabricator. You want to train them specifically for oil and gas participation, you will have to do that, and we can facilitate internship and apprenticeship and that kind of thing. So that is what is happening at the moment as regards facilitating people to participate in the oil and gas industry. The other important element in the oil and gas industry is the issue of these employment agencies. You have many of them operating in Guyana, unregulated. And so at the level of this Central Recruitment and Management Manpower Agency, we are working on a legislative agenda to allow for CRMA becoming the supervisory authority over employment agencies that are operating in Guyana, most of them in the oil and gas industry, because I have had to deal with many instances. People come to this office to make a complaint. They were dismissed. They were dismissed by Kareem. But really, whilst they were working with Kareem, their employer was Eddie Lane, because it is the employment agency that employed them. But most Guyanese don't understand it that way. For persons who have spent time in North America, you would know that. So that has to be regularized in a way whereby properly, when people are interviewed for a job, an employment agency is saying to them, this is how this works. And the issue about registration, they have to register, they have to conform to labor regulations, they have to conform to occupation safety and health regulations. We have to settle the issue. But properly, the fact that they are the employment agency employee, who is responsible for their safety, whether the agency or the person who they send them to work with. So those are issues that presently we are attending to in a holistic way. Whilst we do that, we are seeking assistance from the ILO to help us to craft a robust legislation, labor and OSH, that deals specifically with oil and gas. Because the OSH legislation we have presently, when it was constructed, I suspect we never fathomed that we will be at this place where we have oil and gas industry in Guyana. So all of those things are happening at the same time. As I have said, and also let me mention this, when I arrived here, I had just 9 occupation safety and health officers. I can say to you that they have received extensive training at the highest level to participate in oil and gas and other industries. My intention is to have them specialize in different areas, oil and gas, mining, forestry, different construction and so. And we are bringing in to the complement of officers will move from 9 OSH I'm talking about to 30. And we will have at least 1 or 2 in every region, and you would have in Georgetown. So the senior people, they are being trained at the highest level because they would have to supervise the new people that are coming in. Also, we have had extensive training for the new people that are coming in, because most, if not all of them, they're just coming with CXCs. We have to train them to be an occupation safety and health officer. We have to train them to be a labor officer. We have to train them to be a co-op officer. We have to train them to be a Board of Industrial Training officer. So all of that is happening, and as I have said, we will move from 87 staff members to nearly 200 based on the framework we have set out.
Can you give us an insight on the negotiation of the national minimum wage increase?
Well, the conversation, I would say, continued. When I got here, it was a stalled process. The last meeting I think they had was March 2019. And that is the tripartite committee, Labor, Ministry of Labor, and private sector. As I understand it, everyone has agreed that we have to up the national minimum wage. They agreed for it to be $60,000. And in the conversation, the consideration about the intervention of COVID, and therefore the private sector had the argument that, listen, COVID has impacted negatively on our bottom line. And you would know during the early days of COVID, many companies were sending people home. And so I'm at a place where the unions, of course, are saying, Minister, issue the order. The private sector, they're saying, Minister, don't be that quick to issue the order. The point is, as Minister and as the Cabinet and the government, we have to take into consideration all the issues. Because the worst thing that can happen is that tomorrow morning I issue the order, and then a small company that might have 60 employees, they have to send home 20 persons. So I have to weigh that. For persons who just chatter, they don't have to pay attention to that. All they will say, okay, issue the order. But we have to weigh as a government, how does that impact, at this time, people who are employed? And so what I can say to the nation, the order will be issued, but the question as to when, I cannot definitively, and I will not attempt to do that, because the conversation still continue. I will shortly, before the end of the year, convene a meeting of the tripartite committee where we can have a conversation on this matter. Two important things that must be recognized. As I understand it, you would know that at the level of the public sector, the issue about the $60,000 is basically a non-issue, because the public sector minimum wage, so to speak, is $70,000. At the level of the private sector, as I understand it, more than 90% of the persons working in the private sector are already working for more than $60,000. So in large measure, we are just considering about 10% of persons working in the private sector whose salary at the moment will be at the present minimum wage, which is somewhere less than $44,000. So that is the background to this matter. People have the conversation like all workers at the bottom scale are affected negatively. That is not so. The private sector, they have brought to me a conversation, and I'm waiting for them to return to me, where they say maybe we can consider sector per sector at this juncture. Sectors that are doing well, maybe we can implement, and the ones that are not doing so well, we wait for later. My position, I would make that judgment. I have said to them, you must bring that to me. You must tell me which are the sectors. Of course, they are stalled because which sector will go first? And so I suppose when we have the conversation, tripartite meeting very shortly, that we can try to bring resolution to the matter, and this minimum wage matter, we can deal with it very shortly.
There has been a number of industrial deaths, especially in the mining sector. What is the ministry's position on this?
Well, the thing is, we are working on zero deaths. But as I've said earlier, properly, you couldn't have 9 officers to police occupation, safety, and health across the length and breadth of this country. It's an impossible task. And therefore, first thing had to be attended to is the complement of staff. And as I've said, we are moving that from 9 to 30. We are ensuring in every region we have established labor offices. We are ensuring in every region at least you have 2 occupation safety and health officers that can review and be involved in the economic life and development of regions. Whilst you speak to mining, and that's where most of the deaths have happened, forestry they have had death in, construction they have had death in also. There's another important issue that must be considered when we're discussing OSH, is psychological issues of persons who might be working in a different environment, in an office. That is a consideration also in health and safety. A lot of times people just discuss the matter of physical safety in construction or in mining, and so all of that have to be in the conversation, widening the scope of the issue of safety and health of employees wherever they function. So we have done training, as I've said, and we have established a tripartite committee, that is the Ministry of Labor, OSH, the GGMC, and the Guyana Gold and Diamond Miners Association, so that we can work collaboratively to arrest the situation in the mining industry, which is terrible as I speak to you. Just last week, someone got killed again in the mining industry. I would say, since I am minister, I've had to issue, I don't know, maybe now, about 4 dozen death announcements, which is 4 dozen too much. And we have to deal with that. We have to deal with the issue of safe mining practices. Outside of that, the intervention has to be with training of people who work in the mining industry. And so we're discussing health care within mining or within industries, where we do training program of people who work at a back dam or landing or whatever they call it, in rudimentary first aid. Because some people die not from the injury, from the handling. And that is what killed them, not the injury. I believe, and I've said to OSH, we have to train miners to deal with simple issues like CPR, because a person might suffer a serious heart attack, and intervention will save their life. We have to train them about how you deal with a broken arm or leg. You know that it can be regularized. You just pull it, put a splint, and you strap, and that keeps the person together. That intervention, they might have a puncture. All you need is to know that you have to add compression to it. But if you don't do that, the person will bleed out. So it's not the injury that will cause the death. It is because the person wasn't attended to. So other than also paying attention to how they work, how the pits must be constructed, and all those issues, the safety, we also have to pay attention on the healthcare side. In the event you have an accident, how you respond to it, who respond to it. Maybe we have to move to the place whereby mining companies, they have to have on site a MEDEX, or together in a mining district, you have a MEDEX station or something like that. That can be the first responders to deal with accidents in the industry. So it's a holistic approach to this matter. We are attempting to deal with it that way. And as I've said, we have included stakeholders, two major stakeholders in this matter. That is the Guyana Gold and Diamond Miners Association, which include the Women Miners Association and the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission. So we are working on developing that. The other important thing, whilst you focus on mining, most people are dying, construction. You know, I have had calls to close down 2 construction sites in the city, unheard of, you know, and people were very offended because they think this never happened. Well, I would say if you don't put yourself in order, more of that is going to be happening. My position is, listen, I have no sacred cow. My position is you have to obey the law, or you will suffer the consequences. I will hope that we don't have to go that far. The people at House Street, we shut down their construction company. In 2 days, they responded with all the requisite paraphernalia for the people working on the site. So in 2 days, their site was open back to work. I don't want to stop people. We had a major issue. A man was killed up the road there at Regent Street. That construction site took about 2 weeks to respond before we can say, okay, return to. But what I know is that we will not have you go back to the same way how the site functioned before the man was killed. That will not happen. The other important issue in this whole scheme of things is we have engaged the police force, that they can properly understand that a debt that is occupation, safety, and health related, the lead entity to investigate is the OSH department, not the police force. Unless you can prove it's a murder, unless you can prove it's suicide or something like that. And the same Regent Street construction, we had this issue. When my officers, they turned up here, the police didn't know what to do with them. They thought they were infringing and impeding their investigation. And so we have had a conversation, and we have set up a technical committee with the police force, the fire service, and insurance companies and so. And we are committed to the police force to do training of their officers through the length and breadth of Guyana. So we have this collaborative program, and they would understand once it is an industrial-related debt, the lead authority to investigate is the Occupation Safety and Health Department. So all of those things are happening as I speak to you.
Turning our attention to child labor, a number of single parent and less fortunate families have been forced to putting their children into early labor. What is the ministry's position regarding this?
The law is the law, and that is what the ministry stands on. But whilst I say that, we have to have a national conversation, and I have raised it publicly. I went into the Pomeroon on the coconut estates, and child labor existed. I went to review it myself because I didn't want to take the word of anyone. I went there. And what I can say to you, since my intervention, all the companies in the Pomeroon River that deals with this matter, they responded it positively. But the conversation don't stop there. Unless we have a holistic program, when you remove the 14-year-old child, properly you must remove them, from the activity of work, the fact that that child might be the only breadwinner for a single parent mother, what do we do then? What do we do with the child? And for me, we have to have a situation, we have to put in place where and what we do with the child after we remove the child. It makes no sense we just remove the child and the child goes on back. I can assure you, all of us know the child will return. If not that workplace, some other place. Because the issue about the family survival is a fundamental issue for the child. How we create conditions where we can take that child and place them into a place for training, where they can properly learn a skill, where they can properly, as a teenager and as an adult, be able to be in a position to support themselves and their family. So it has to be, as I see it. But we are applying the law. It must be applied because we have signed on to many international conventions to deal with the issue of child labor. I think the U.S. just put out a report making the point that we have taken some action. The other important issue is within the rubric of trafficking in persons, child labor also will raise its head. So holistically, we are dealing with that matter. But as I said, at the labor end, like OSHN, when I arrived here, you only had 16 labor officers. That will increase to 26. So regions didn't have labor officers. So nobody could have properly gone into the Pomeroon and intervened. So we're in Georgetown screaming and talking about child labor. But beyond that, what? Who is looking at it to the Pakurama Mountain Range? Who's looking at it at Moruca? So unless you have structures to deal with the matter, it's useless. You have it on the law book. Because unless you have people to police it, unless you have people who will not just police it, they will police it taking no sides in the matter. They will police it utilizing the law as is, and not to determine based on who they're dealing with, the law will apply. And my position on all of these matters is that the law applies for everyone. I am colorblind as regards these matters. So we are working with international partners also on this matter. I have had consultations with the ILO and several virtual meetings sponsored by ILO, UNDP, and so discussing this matter. And one of the ideas that we are discussing as labor ministers is to do visitation so that we can have appreciation of what each other is doing. But of course, COVID pandemic that has created conditions whereby conferences are virtual conferences. And that, as useful as it is, it don't allow for the type of interaction. It don't allow for the visitation of, let us say, a country that has succeeded in an area. You need to go and see it, understand what they have done. You can't do that virtually. So we will hope that with the COVID pandemic seems to be not so intense as it was last year, we can return back to having face-to-face conversation dealing with these matters. But training is happening also for officers, labor officers, as regards child labor, so that all labor officers also will be informed, educated, and have an understanding of the law and the application of the law, how to deal with this matter. It's a work in progress, I will say. I think we have made some headway, but we have more to do, and we have many more hurdles to climb to deal with the matter in a successful way.
Minister, what is the ministry's position regarding Rusal's recommencement of its operation here in Guyana?
Well, the point is, I have at the level of the government, and just a couple of weeks ago, I asked Minister of Natural Resources, Vikram Bharat, whether he has had any correspondence, he or his ministry, from Rusal about recommencing operation. Because in the international sphere, I saw Rusal making that comment that they will restart operations in Guyana several months ago because they have restructured their company and all that kind of thing. But a couple of weeks ago when I queried from Minister Bharat, he said there had been no correspondence, no communication from Rusal that they will be returning to Guyana, at least in the near term. Whilst I say that, the unions, they have a representative of the former workers, they have this argument that I still have a role to play. My contention is, a role to play with whom? And for what? There is no company. There are no employees. So you can't still tell me to convene some arbitration. What am I arbitrating? What I promise the nation is that when Rusal recommences its operation, the ball game will be different as regards labor relations in all its facets and occupation safety and health issues. And I am committed to, if I have to put two officers, a labor and OSH officers, to function at the compound at Rusal, I will do that, to ensure that we don't reach the place where we went as a nation the last time around. The workers' rights must be protected at all times. That is my fundamental issue. And it is so important to me that when I was seeking to develop this ministry, I set out to do it with three guiding principles, of which one of them is protection of the rights of workers. And I will hold all companies to account once they breach that. Quickly, let me say, as I speak to you, tomorrow I convene a meeting with my technical officers here for us to review our legislation because we have several amendments that we want to clear with the AG chambers. And one of the important things in the whether it's labor side or state side is fines will be increased substantially for breach of labor laws and occupation safety and health laws.
Can you give us an update on the audit of co-op societies countrywide and how many functioning societies are there?
Well, on the books, they have 512 or thereabout co-op societies. The audit has not commenced yet. And why? Second thought, I want to audit first the department. And therefore, I can say to you that presently we're having a conversation with the forensic audit team to audit the department. Because I don't want to be embarrassed when I go there doing this integrity audit of co-ops. What we have on the books there is different to what is out there. So I have to see, and that will commence very shortly. When I'm finished understanding all the issues regarding the files we have there, then we will move to the integrity audit of the co-ops themselves. What I know is that we have 11 companies that responded, to the expression of interest. And my thought is to have one company each do one individual region and two companies do region 4. So that is where we're at as regards the integrity audit. I have reestablished IMC. I have the National Union, which is the overarching supervisory authority of co-ops and credit unions. So I have put in place, because they help the co-op department. They work together collaboratively to strengthen co-ops and credit unions and that kind of thing. So all of those structures that didn't exist, they're in place, and we have several proposals, several programs, several plans, how we would roll these things out. I would say that by mid next year, I would be in a position to properly report to the nation about the state and status of co-op societies. And just for information to the public, because I think the nation take this matter not as seriously as they should, because we have no understanding of the money and assets that co-op societies they have in their possession, and credit unions. I'm speaking about tens of billions of dollars. I am speaking about. And if the nation understands that, they will support the issue. You know, yesterday I was at Eastville Co-op Society. That is, they have 50 acres of land as a housing co-op on the southern side of Annandale, over the embankment. And by the time I finished the meeting, I saw somebody sent me some foolishness on the APNU page, saying that I went there to throw out the management committee and establish IMC. Total foolishness. So the point is, let me make this point. APNU has no interest as to the mismanagement of the co-op. The fact is that under their tenure, since 2016, this co-op society had no audit done. This co-op society, the management committee, don't inform the members of what is happening as regards their money and their property. And one intervention, and they have a problem with that. My position is this. I have said clearly, the watchword for co-ops and credit unions for me is accountability and transparency. And if the management committee, they cannot and will not do it, I will get rid of them and have the CCDO establish an IMC until we can have an AGM where they find people who will comply with the law. I have no apologies to make to no one as regards that. If the APNU ministers, they were playing footsie with these people, Hamilton will not. Because I have no, as I said, I have no sacred cow. I deal with this matter equally through the length and breadth of this country. I am prepared. I will continue to support co-ops and credit unions. We have put at their disposal the co-op department to do training for them, the management committee, so that they can run this thing like a business. And I continue to encourage people to form co-ops, more so young people. So much can be done collectively as regards establishing businesses and so on via the co-op route. Young people utilizing their skills and their profession to make far more money that they are making individually. So I would say this to young people today, that they need to establish co-op societies of different sorts and types and seek to ensure that they can utilize them as vehicles for national development, upward mobility, economic development. But in all of that, the watchword, as I have said, is accountability and transparency. Their parents, the management committee, their parents didn't leave a will. This property wasn't willed to them. The bank account wasn't willed to them. And for the members of co-op societies, I say this like I've said yesterday. Every member in a co-op, they are owners in like manner the chairperson is not a greater shareholder of a co-op than an ordinary member. Everyone have equal share. Every person, they have equal share. How you have a management committee is that the 2,000 of us, 200 of us, every year, based on the rules, we come together and we elect 7 persons or 10 persons to run our affairs. That is as far as it is. It is not to hand over our assets to them. But many of these management committees think that they own this thing. And the members, they have to be educated to the fact that they are equal shareholders, like the chairman, the secretary, the treasurer, whoever they are. And that is what I'm getting home to the ordinary members. This is your asset. This is your property. And you have a responsibility to yourself, to your children, to ensure that this property, this business, this asset works for you and for your benefit. And that is what I continue to say to co-op. So foolish statement will not stop me from doing, but I will continue, once they work properly, to have the CCDO get rid of people who are not serving properly and establish management committees. I will do that. I have no apologies to make with this.
Lastly, can you talk to us about the labor assessment survey?
Yes, the thing is that, again, on second thought, we are having a conversation with the Bureau of Statistics for us to clarify some issues, because, they have some authority in statute. And so the permanent secretary and the team here, they're having that conversation with them. For me, I believe this must be done. We are having that conversation also at the level of the government. Because properly, for us to plan as a nation, we need to know what we have in all different skill sets. And we need to be able to forecast every year, every 3 years, every 5 years, every 10 years, what we must train. Because I suspect right now we are just doing training. And we might be overtraining in one area and under-training in another area. So the labor, the survey, for once people say, don't say survey because it might impact the assessment, so to speak, will be done. What I can say to you is that within the government itself, I spoke earlier about this training issue, that Minister Ashley Singh is heading this cabinet subcommittee. We are looking at that assessment being done presently in the oil and gas industry, so that we can quickly fill those holes to negate the argument coming out of the oil and gas industry about the skill set don't exist within Guyana. That's why they have to bring overseas people to do some of these jobs. So we have started in an area, and the other areas we have to pay attention to. And it has to be this way, a national program and a regional program, because regions have their own unique operations, not the same thing we might need in Region 4, we need in Region 1 or 9 or so. So that is what we're focusing on. Hopefully, early next year, we can start this assessment, and by mid next year, we can have a document to discuss with stakeholders and to present to the nation as to these skill sets that we have in Guyana presently, how many of different types, and how many we need to train in the medium term and the long term.
Thank you, Minister. You've been listening to Minister of Labor, Honorable Joseph Hamilton. I'm your host, Lennox Gasper, and this has been Progress Report.
Highlights, insight,
Reports.
updates,
This is the progress.
progress.
The Progress Report.